Hello, everyone, and welcome to the finale of What If Deku was Chainsawman. I'm not even going to hold it to you, I'm just going to get straight into it. I hope you enjoy the video. Deku looks around an empty room, metal box, one single window with ventilation holes atop the top right corner. He was knocked out and tied up, being put in a chair with the blood letting twice on his arm, dripping out into a drain below him. The strange man would speak, softly but firmly. So, you finally woke up. That healing factor really is something special, isn't it? Deku looks around, confused. Where is this coming from? He would scream, "Where are you? Show yourself!" All for one would laugh, beginning to tell Deku a story of a little boy who got away 10 years ago. He tells him of the tragedy this boy faced, his poor upbringing, abusive household, and abandoned father. Deku would realize he's talking about him. Listening on, All for One would continue, telling him how his father suddenly disappeared and that he owed him more than money. His father auctioned off his own son. Deku deep down knew this. He'd begin to remember back, for real this time. He'd remember his father speaking about it, telling him he's in too deep and he needs an out. Deku hearing this as a kid would snap, unconsciously killing his father in desperation and forgetting about it for all those years. Deku would crack a little. All for One would continue. Do you even know the power of your own quirk? Deku would look down, his mind breaking all over the memories all flooding back to him. All for One would release his shackles. Deku would stumble. In a half trance, his mind would tell him not to open the door. This time, Deku didn't wake up. He opened it. The voice would stop abruptly as everything went silent. Deku would see as clear as day a man holding onto his face, onto the face of his savior, Aizawa, a race ahead. Deku would drop to his knees, seeing Aizawa in the state he's in. Red particles would emit from his body as All for One would begin to float. You see, I've been planning this for a while now. Your power isn't regular. Deku would look up, before All for One could even continue. Deku's hand grabbed his cord and ripped it. Deku would take a different form than usual, his chainsaws more grimy, larger, more beefy. Deku had muscles protruding from his body, much like muscular. His chainsaw head grew more and blood leaked from every part of his body. The chainsaws would rev louder than ever. Deku laughed. Deku lunged at All for One before taking a bite out of his shoulder, ripping a chunk clean off. All for One would grab it before using his other arm to pull Deku above him, charging a max attack before sending Deku into the atmosphere, a gaping hole where his stomach used to be. 3 of his limbs detached from his body. Deku's organs would wrap the cord and yank it. Deku's eyes would flip back to the front of his head, his stomach would wrap around his neck. Deku falling through the atmosphere would slowly reform, burning as he did so, his protruding muscles turning pitch black. Deku would land, the low rev of his chainsaws getting louder as he approached the battle site once again, looking over and seeing Aizawa with a cracked skull on the floor. He was unsure if he was alive or not. Deku would see the villain on the floor, taken out by one of the pro heroes backing up All Might before they retreated after seeing Aizawa's defeat. Deku would straight up wring this villain out like a towel, drinking its blood straight before staring coldly at All for One. They begin to brawl, Deku dying and reforming over and over again, the news of watching him in horror as the two villainous figures brawled. Deku would get the hand up in the fight after fighting for a while, chopping All for One's arm clean off before lunging in. Deku would finish All for One off and on instinct his mouth would open wide. Everyone would look on in horror as Deku would eat All for One whole. He would then stand there, his chainsaws still revving. He looks directly at the camera before grabbing Aizawa and disappearing from view. Everyone would completely forget about All for One, even All Might. His vestiges don't though. Everyone is confused who the strange man on screen is. They dub him the Hero of Hell. The rest of the league is disbanded and they forget about their common connection of All for One and Stain. So, no League of Villains and no All for One. Aizawa is rushed to the hospital and is saved, though his quirk is gone. Deku also remembers his transformation this time, remembering his power to erase concepts from memory and confirming it after asking Aizawa about All for One. Aizawa is nursed to health and Deku continues on, keeping his powers a secret from everyone. Although All for One was defeated easy, almost too easy, Deku remembers back to the man with hands all over him from the USJ incident. If he was a League villain, if he was a League of Villains member, where was he? Deku would return to class. Aizawa was still teaching, but not currently being there, as he was in a coma-like state for the time being. Also, being quirkless, Deku looking on at him would feel saddened for the first time in his life. Class just didn't feel the same, nor did Aizawa when he finally woke up. He was still Aizawa, but he had lost all his life, in a way. It was sad for Deku to see. Aizawa would be teaching one day, as he introduces the Big Three to the class. Deku tilts his head. The Big Three? What the hell is that? Who the hell are they? They walk through the door, and they stand in front of the class. Deku looks at all of them, squinting to analyze them all a little. He's kinda bored by the guy who has the eating quirk. He likes Nejire, Puchita once again barking in his head for him. He then scans over Mirio, seeing the scars on his hands and scars all over his neck. He can already tell Mirio is strong. They speak and Mirio takes over, saying it's easier for them to fight instead. They would start fighting, and Deku not being allowed to partake this time, in case he goes mental again. Deku knows he won't, but agrees anyway, thinking it's better to obey Aizawa for the time being, while he's down. Mirio blitzes the class, like in 30 seconds. Deku looks in amazement. He was crazy strong. He can teleport? Why was he naked though? Aizawa would grin a little before nudging Deku. Yo, Deku, get that strong for me one day, eh? Deku would look at him and grin. Oh, I can do that. Deku was recommended by All Might to Night Eye in this timeline, as there's a bond fixed, as All Might took Mirio on as his successor. Night Eye doesn't like the idea, but agrees anyway, doing the usual test with Deku, which he actually passes, on the more comedic side of it, though unintentionally. They'd begin the patrols the next day, Deku walking in with Mirio, thinking back to a convo he had with Night Eye about a certain man. Overhaul. He explains his empire and Deku gets a weird feeling about it. He shakes his head and looks around. Looking down the alleyway, he would see a small girl running towards him covered in bandages. Deku would look down at the girl clinging to him. Deku would remember himself at that age. He sees himself in the girl and relates to her struggle. He puts her behind him and walks towards Overhaul. Mirio would try to take the easy way out, but Deku would laugh before pulling his cord again. Mirio's face palms and powers up. They kick Overhaul into the air and to not destroy the stuff on the floor. Deku and Mirio jump. They start beating Overhaul 2v1, and their strength is crazy. Overhaul would see this life flash before his eyes. He touches himself, pause, and breaks himself down, reassembling himself back to normal again, reverting the damage. He would press onto his right ear and would speak. Backup would help right now. Deku rushes Overhaul, then all falling to the ground. Deku would get the same feeling in his gut, the feeling of death and imminent. He would look down, seeing a man in a red coat rushing towards them. Due to his injury in the USJ, he would only have been put into the tube thing a lot earlier, gaining All for One as a result. This is why All for One died pretty easily in Casino. Deku would see him approaching at top speeds and wouldn't know what to do. He'd block, but being touched by Shigaraki and begins immediately decaying. Deku would grasp his hand and kick Shigaraki off, Mirio noticing and pulling Deku away, landing on the floor and calling back up from Night Eye. They face down, a healed Overhaul and buffed Shigaraki. Mirio would start to fight Shigaraki. His power is strong, but due to his quirk and the other quirks haven't manifested yet, being held off by the wielders as not to break Mirio's body. He would use One for All at 100%, plus his quirk to do some damage to Shigaraki. though his healing factor can't keep up. Can't Though due to his healing factor, he can't do much. Deku would see this and would know what he had to do. Pulling his cord once again, he would jump in right before Mirio is about to get beat, taking the blow instead. Deku would smash into a million pieces before reforming. He rushes Shigaraki once again. The battle would continue on. Deku and Shigaraki blowing each other and slicing each other up hundreds of times, reforming and fighting on again. The regeneration kicks into overdrive and they land blow on blow. Shigaraki would rush Deku, his arms force evolving and surrounding Deku. Deku would spring around and cut his way out. Shigaraki, utilizing his adaptations, would send a hand at Deku, eloping him and touching him. Deku would decay and regen, both equal footing. Though due to Deku's blood running out, he would begin to decay quicker. Mirio's footing. Mirio looks at this from afar, seeing the situation Deku was in. He knew what he had to do. He rushes at Shigaraki. Shigaraki tries to kill him, but he phases through it, kicking Shigaraki away before cutting himself and dripping it into Deku's mouth. He would then kickstart his chainsaws once again, revving louder than ever. Deku feeling a power like he'd never felt before. He rushes at Shigaraki, swinging a single time at the entire block. Swinging a single time, the entire block and houses, trees, cars, and everything would be cutting clean in half. Shigaraki looks down. His body was detached. Deku moving at speeds he didn't know what could be achieved. Cut Shigaraki down, mincing him up. Shigaraki would reform. Deku wouldn't know what's happening. He punches Shigaraki and gets sent to his mindscape, seeing the past wielders, a small orange dog and a crying boy. Deku would look around. The wielders look at him and he pants a little. The crying boy again, up again. The crying boy would look at Deku before getting up again and attacking Deku in his mindscape. They cut to real life and Shigaraki punches Deku and tries to steal his quirk. Deku feels the contact and opens his jaw 180 degrees, biting a chunk out of Shigaraki. He would fall, blood spraying everywhere. His regeneration was failing him. Shigaraki looks on. Deku looks more monstrous at this point than human. He looks worse than Shigaraki. He backs up. Deku follows him down. Chainsaw is active and chains Shigaraki up and pulls him. Shigaraki is almost crushed before he's decapitated by Deku. Shigaraki is killed and Overhaul gets bodied straight after. Deku swoops in and defeats Overhaul, destroying his arms. Deku got rid of 90% of the main villains in My Hero Academia, erasing their existence completely. Due to this, the world is genuinely a better,